Hello, I'm John Foster. I'm a physician who does Social Security disability exams. Today, I'm going to begin a multi-part series on the diagnosis of functional illness. To begin with, what do I mean by functional illness? I mean a disease, symptoms, or signs caused mainly or solely by psychological factors rather than physical or flesh and blood factors. I'm going to outline 4 principles of functional disease in this lecture, and then I'll expand on them in future lectures. Principle number 1 I learned from the cartoonist and commentator Scott Adams, and that's that mind reading is not a thing. You can never know what's going on inside someone else's head. You can't know their thoughts. You can't know their motivations. You can't even know your own. That's why we often say things like, "What was I thinking?" Or, "I have no idea why I did that." We can guess, we can make reasonable surmises, but we can never be absolutely sure what's going on in someone else's head. All we can evaluate is what they say and what we see, essentially their behavior and the findings on physical examination. The second principle I think is important is that functional disease should not be a diagnosis of exclusion. We shouldn't examine the patient, find no physical evidence for their disease, and therefore conclude that it's all in their head. There are many serious diseases where the physical examination may be entirely normal, migraine headache being just one. I believe that there are many positive signs and symptoms that point the diagnostician towards functional illness, and I'll be expounding on these in future lectures. In fact, I personally believe that to make the diagnosis of functional illness, first, there should not be symptoms or signs of physical illness, and second, there should be at least 3 positive findings of functional illness. The third principle is that there is not just one psychological profile of the patient with functional disease. They're not all just faking. In fact, we may see functional disease as a manifestation of psychosis. For example, the patient with schizophrenia who has delusions that they're ill. They may be a manifestation of hysterical neurosis, as in the patient with a conversion reaction. They may be a manifestation of hypochondriacal neurosis, which is a form of contained delusion. The patient has a delusion that they're ill, while the rest of their sensorium and thought processes are normal. The patient may be what I call a symptom exaggerator, where they have an actual physical illness, but for whatever reason they exaggerate the symptoms and signs, usually in hopes of gaining something, such as money. And finally, we have the true malingerer, a patient who knows they're well and deliberately lies in order to feign illness or injury for personal gain. The fourth principle relates to that, which is that there is almost always something that the patient gains from a functional illness. It may be money, it may be sympathy, it may be the ability to stay home rather than having to go to work. It may be avoiding loss of face, and many other what we call secondary gains. We often read that functional illness is rare. Well, like all illnesses, it depends on the clinical setting. In a setting such as Social Security disability exams, where the patient has a lot to gain from being diagnosed as ill or injured, we can expect the incidence of functional illness to be high. As usual, everything I've said in this talk is based on my own reading and personal experience and is not the official platform of the Social Security Administration or any other governmental or medical body. Finally, always remember, if it happens, it's possible. Thank you.